Yeah, what about your favorite anime? What was that one you watched? Death Note?
Oh. Let's go into the topic, which is a little different in the sense that we're gonna actually be talking about movies instead of video games. But what these are movies that either were video games or then became video games because of the movies. But mostly video games that turned into movies. And Ryan says this, blanket statement of they're all terrible. Is he wrong? Well, let's find out. First of all, I want us to think about what is the first video game movie, and also we're going to include TV shows in this that you ever watched. The first video game movie that I watched was the first Final Fantasy movie that they came out with.
The Spirits Within?
Yeah, Spirits Within. Because I had just barely finished playing Final Fantasy VII, and I think I was maybe playing Final Fantasy VIII at the time. Now, I know it wasn't like a Final Fantasy 7 or 8 movie because the 7 movie came out later, which I actually did like. That's the only one I did.
Immediately ruined his blanket statement.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why we talk about this.
But I was so freaking confused because I watched it and I didn't know what was going on because I don't know which Final Fantasy it was based on, but
the first one.
The very first one?
Yeah, if I recall correctly.
I don't know,
Like the first one that was US based or the Japanese one?
Ever. Like the thing that with the Advent Children for Final Fantasy VII, like it did a good enough job explaining prior stuff where I wasn't confused. Now granted, maybe it was because I watched Advent Children as a teenager and I watched Spirits Within as a child, so maybe that could mean the difference of intellect.
Yeah. I would say if you watched The Spirits Within now, I don't know if you'd enjoy it more, but you definitely understand it more.
Yeah. That was the first one I ever saw, and then I saw a Mortal Kombat movie, and that was bad.
What was bad about it?
Tell us why. It was just cheesy. Now I did see it as a kid too, and even as a kid I thought it was cheesy. Like just the acting and
I just gotta stop you. The first one was The Spirits Within Final Fantasy.
Yeah, that was the first one I saw.
Kiefan.
I don't know. I have honestly no idea. Maybe Tomb Raider. Maybe Resident Evil. I don't think so. Prince of Persia. I know I saw that one, but that's 2010, so I doubt that was the first.
Oh, that's another one I actually kind of liked. So I can take away my blanket statement.
Yeah.
See,
I honestly like. Here's the thing. Like I said it before. Like as a kid, I liked video games, but I didn't really pay that much attention. Like I played them. I had fun. I didn't really start getting more and more into like watching stuff about games until I was older. Probably around like Halo time, like Halo 3-esque times when I started. That's when I got my a console where I could play things. Because the 360 is when I had my first console. So really, I don't think I paid enough attention to know.
Okay.
So honestly, I don't have an answer for you. I can name a few that I have seen just looking through this list that I brought up.
Okay.
But for the first, I don't know.
Real quick. So the first one I would say actually, and this is truly one of the video game movie crimes, like where it's so bad that everyone wishes it never happened, and that's the Mario Bros movie.
But that's almost bad to the point where it's enjoyable.
Where it's good.
Yeah, actually, it's true. I would watch that again.
1993 is when that came out.
Wow.
Has 14% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics, and only 28 from people. So no one liked it.
Yeah, and so the thing about that movie is I think you're right. So bad that it's good, but it was just weird. It was just so obviously forced, what I wanted to bring up is when we have these video movies that come from video games. Do you think, first of all, that
people would enjoy them more if they played the video games? Like, is that who they are marketed for? Or are they made for a broad audience to try to appeal to everyone?
Well, in terms of the Super Mario Bros., I don't think playing the games would have made you like that movie anymore.
Right.
Like, actually not having played the game, you probably would have enjoyed the movie a little more just because you're like, with the Koopas, like, the Koopas looked so freaking weird in the movie.
All of it, I've never seen it, so I don't know.
And then, like, Bowser, he didn't look anything like, and, like the only thing that had any semblance to the actual game.
Yoshi?
No, I don't remember.
Yoshi was in it.
Yeah, but Yoshi looked like a raptor, didn't he?
Yeah. But technically what he's like supposed to be is like a dinosaur.
Yeah. But like a cute and cuddly dinosaur, not like a dinosaur.
Yep.
But like the Bob-Ombs. I remember the Bob-Ombs. They actually used Bob-Ombs and they looked like the Bob-Ombs in the game.
Yeah.
That was about it. that was like, but if you hadn't played any of the games and you saw the movie, I mean, you probably might not still like it, but I mean, you wouldn't be as, like, you wouldn't have any expectations as far as translation from video game to movie.
Right.
I think for me, I think the problem is they try both. Like, I think they could be successful. Okay,
That was Ryan's phone.
Oh. I think they could be successful because a lot of these, like, you play the game and you're like, I could see that being an awesome movie. And it sometimes doesn't make sense that it wouldn't translate. Like the Need for Speed movie. I never saw it, but I know it did terribly.
Yeah.
And it's not like they had a bad cast. They had one of the guys from Breaking Bad.
Aaron Paul. And it's not like it's a bad premise either. People love car movies.
Honestly, Fast and Furious is so successful.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not called good cinema, but especially like even the first ones got pretty decent ratings. People enjoy them. Like, it's weird to me that they don't translate when they should. Or like you see a Hitman, because I've never seen any of the Hitman movies either, but I know that they haven't ever done well. And it's weird to me because it's about an assassin. I think what they try to do is they try to make it broad appeal, but also try to make little like parts of it for the video game crowd.
Right.
And then it kind of becomes like irrelevant for both people.
Yeah,
So
you
they
try to please all parties.
They do
Yeah.
they do both halfway. They don't do one thing the whole way.
Yeah, like I never saw the new Assassin's Creed movie, but I read a lot about it and I saw some videos, and it was like they would talk about how they spent so much time in Abstergo, outside of the Animus, outside of the whole world that was supposed to be like, you know, the cool part of the games, especially like, and that was like the thing that plagued the first game that they changed in the second game was less time in the future, more time in the past doing stuff. And I know they spent a lot of time on that and like trying to make everything like look cool and work, and then they also made it look super kind of muddy and just terrible. And I feel like they tried to please the crowd by like saying like, yeah, look at this, we know that there's the Abstergo and there's the whole part outside of it, like, yeah, we know what we're doing, we played the games. But then they also failed that didn't interest people who want to see a movie.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see someone, you know, parkouring over like old whatever, I don't even know what part, I think it might have been Italy, but I don't remember which game it took place kind of in. But, like, regardless, like, people want to see that. They want to see the fun part, not, like, the melodrama behind it. And then the gamers, honestly, probably wanted to see more of that, too. But they also wanted to show that they knew what they were talking about. And that may have pleased some of the gamers, because they're like, okay, they are keeping faithful. But it ended up being, like, a pile of muck. And
Okay.
I feel like that's the big problem, is they try to please both. And you can't. And obviously, if you just try to please one, it's going to be problematic as well. But sometimes that's the best thing you can do.
Okay. Now, when it comes to, because when I think of video game movies that worked or were good or respectable, the first one I think of is Prince of Persia.
Which also did terribly, just so you know. Most people hated that movie.
No.
Yeah?
No.
I'm telling you.
Nope.
Two
It
out of
didn't.
3 at this table.
I like that movie.
3 out of 3.
But I'm just saying,
100%
like,
perfect score.
No.
like ratings-wise, though, it did not do great.
Oh.
Oh, got a 36?
Yeah, people hate it.
Well,
I
the
mean,
critics...
better than Super Mario
but even
Bros.
58 from audience, dude.
The critics hated it.
But 58 from
But
audience
still,
is great.
I mean, but that movie did well. And quite honestly, in the minds of video game movies, that one is respectable.
Probably helps that I never played the games.
But
There
so
were
so
games either.
I think of that.
It was really hot.
I think of Prince of Persia. I also think of Tomb Raider, and I think of Resident Evil.
So something I was doing while you guys were talking, like he was talking, was looking at all the Rotten Tomato scores for all of those different movies because I was like, oh, these are ones that people like. They made a lot of sequels on. None of them did good. Like
Well,
ratings wise, even from audience, not just critics, none of them got like anything.
Okay, which ones did best?
Well, I mean, Prince of Persia is one of the betters at 58 from the audience, and it does say a substantial improvement over most video game adaptations.
Yep.
Honestly, I thought the Resident Evil movies were gonna do well. They didn't. I even thought Silent Hill was gonna do well, but like, okay, the first Tomb Raider got 20% from critics and 47 from audiences.
Okay, so I want to take a step back, and I want us to
Yeah.
probably think about why this is. Even if they are fine movies in of themselves, is there this attachment to being a movie adaptation from a video game that will inevitably draw them down no matter how good the movie is? Because I think
Well-
yes. I think yes.
And this doesn't really have to do with the video game like scores particularly, but I think as well like people that are going to rate stuff usually only rate them negatively. Like they're
Right.
like I didn't vote on that score to bring the score up. I'm sure you didn't.
Nope.
And like
I didn't.
well, yeah, so that's three of us. I mean, not that our input would have changed that outcome much,
But
still,
the point is-
the point is,
People like us, which are probably thousands.
Yeah, the point is like they're not people who are going to be, that liked the movie, and were like, oh no, that was really good. I liked it. They're not going to go out of their way as much as people who were super disappointed with the movie. And so, like, that's just ratings in general. Like, if you look at ratings for restaurants or ratings for, like, video games.
I don't agree anymore. Like, I feel like some of those are harder, like, but I feel like people nowadays, when they love something, they want it to do well, so they'll rate it even above what they think it should be. Maybe back in 2001, that was you're right.
Well,
But I feel like nowadays, not so much.
I would say that with products and video games. I'm not so sure with movies because movies are a passive thing.
But I mean, have you seen, like, the scores for, like
Right,
any
but
Marvel movie?
Another thing as well.
Terrible.
is
No, they're
that
great. I
saw-
know all of them.
there was a game theory from that MatPat did that people were just they didn't want something to do well because they were so disillusioned with it that even if they would have scored it like a 6 or 7 out of 10 or maybe like a 5 in between like 5 or 7 out of 10, they're like, I don't want this movie to do well, 0.
Which is why,
because they don't want it to see that it's doing well.
right? Which is why I bring this up in the sense of that if a movie has the video game stigma or just attached to it, I think that like if Prince of Persia it was never a video game and it was but the same exact movie, I'm sure it would do a lot better than what it did now. And one reason for that is not only snobby movie critics being like, oh, this is from a video game, no, and but then also like if you had people who loved the video game and then they didn't get the video game in the movie, they got a movie, then they're like, oh, this isn't the game I played.
Yeah.
Whatever. So I'm very mad, and it just seems to me like a video game movie just can't win, like no matter what.
I would almost agree with you, but I feel like it can if it actually is really, really good. Now let me explain why I say that. Because book adaptations to movies, and this is something that Ryan and I had talked about, sometimes they can do it. And they're not going to please everyone perfectly. But like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, I would say are generally well accepted adaptations. They're not perfect, but I think people enjoy both forms of the media. On the other hand, we have things like The The Last Airbender,
Aragon,
or Search a Freak movie, which no one's ever heard of, but I liked it, or Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, which is such a good series. Freaking love that series.
But the movie was
so bad. And I bet you some of those.
Series unfortunately events that first.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I bet you actually some of those aren't as bad as we think they are, but because we like the books, we then become those snobby people. Like I think it's a fair thing to feel that way. I feel like it can be frustrating to feel that way. And I don't ever go out of my way to rate things, really. So, but I know people do. So I think it is fair for people to feel like if it doesn't fulfill what they thought it should, that they'll be mad. I think that's fair thought. And I just don't think that anyone's been able to meet both things together. And I think that's what we're missing right now is that ability to transcend it, to take part of it, but also still be like its own thing. Like, I feel like sometimes they either try to behold too much to the source material, or they deviate so far away and keep so little of it that it just pisses everyone off.
See, and
I think they need like a soft
yeah,
middle.
because I think that they try to please everyone and then they end up pleasing no one.
Like, how do they say the Avatar's name in the movie?
Ong.
Oh my gosh, I'm not exaggerating. 50
I've never watched a lick of it. It came out while I was in New York.
He told me about it and it made me laugh.
But, what was I lost my train of thought.
You were saying that they try to please everyone.
Right, they try to please everyone. I think that they really should try to aim it more towards the gamers because, just like you said, they need to go one way or the other and risk whatever losses they might incur. Because, like, for example, the Warcraft movie. Now, I think that one was... I did enjoy it more than I disliked it, but because, like, you're not going to draw in just the casual moviegoer who doesn't play video games. You're not going to draw that in with the title of the movie.
Nope,
like,
I was not interested.
And so, like, that's why I think for games particularly like Warcraft, they should have geared it more towards the gamers than a broad audience, because the broad audience isn't going to go see it anyway, because they're going to see, oh, the Warcraft movie. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I'm not interested at all. Like, yeah, granted, there are going to be some randos who are going to go like, oh, well, I'm bored, and I have $10 to burn. Yeah, let's go see it.
What a life that would be.
But yeah, I mean, there are people like that as well. But I think for the most part, I think the movies would probably score better, especially among audiences, if they geared it more towards the gamers rather than trying to get a whole broad audience. Like, what's the purpose of getting the whole broad audience? I mean, obviously, money is going to be their main driving factor, but I mean, now we have all these examples of all these movies doing poorly. So, like, you need to think about, like, most of those movies did try to bring everyone in, and like in their greed, they ruined a potentially good movie.
Now, which one did you think Warcraft did?
Now, I think, like I said, I think they did I enjoyed it a little more than I disliked it. There were some problems I had with it just because, like, I do play Warcraft, and I play World of Warcraft, and, like, there were a few nods to the gamers, and if you didn't play World of Warcraft or the Warcraft games at all, you might be a little confused, especially when Gul'dan shows up, or, like, when he has the Draenei, like, captured and everything. Like, if I hadn't played the games, I would have no idea who the crap the Draenei were. Like, who are these random people that are captured by Gul'dan? Who is Gul'dan? What?
See, that's the thing is, like, I feel like they can get past that, though. Like, Lord of the Rings, obviously, intensely confusing. And if they would have marketed it maybe more like an epic fantasy adventure to the likes of Lord of the Rings, and they would have made a good story, maybe using the World of Warcraft world, and created their own story. Like, I think everyone could have been happy, potentially.
Maybe.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can maybe potentially please that broad audience if you focus it more towards one particular group.
Okay, and so I want to say that Prince of Persia, I think, did the opposite. I think they tried to make its own movie based off of the video game, and I think for the most part they did that because there were changes to the story that
like they went one way.
Right.
So they went towards the broad audience rather than the gamers.
Yeah.
And I liked it too.
Yeah.
I mean, I might be a little biased because I think the girl was hot, and I've said that at least 3 times.
So
in
was
this
the guy.
podcast, but-
Jake
Yeah,
Gyllenhaal
that's
did.
why I liked
That's
it.
actually why I watched the movie.
But no, so, and I'm a huge Prince of Persia fan. So, like, and I'll say this again, after I beat the game, I was like, this would make a great movie, and then they made it a movie. And so I think part of me, like, forced myself to enjoy it because I was so happy that I kind of, like, got it right. But at the same time, like, the story within the game itself, you're just by yourself pretty much the whole time. You're with the girl sometimes, and you're fighting a bunch of sand monsters. There's no one else. But in this movie, yeah, and you're just in the palace the whole time.
Oh.
So it's very, very linear, and the majority of the game is, you know, it's like 30% fighting and 70% parkour. Get out of this room because you need to learn how to climb that rope, to swing over to this, to, you know, to move this lever, to open that, to shine this light, to blah blah blah. Anyway, and you got very little of that in the movie, which is, yeah, and I loved that part of the game. That was my favorite part. At the beginning of the movie, you see him parkouring a little bit to get into the castle that they're invading, but then after that, you don't really see it. And so I think what they were doing was they were saying, okay, like they're opening it up. The casual moviegoer, the person who didn't play the game, wouldn't see it as, oh, this is coming from the video game, but the player would recognize, oh, he's doing the parkour right there. And then once you get past that, then you kind of just get lost in the story, and then you go from that, because, you know, in the story, there, you know, he's got a brother and he's got the king, and he like stabs himself after he convinces his brother that he has to like press the dagger to go back in time. None of that ever happens in the movie. It's completely original, but it was very fresh as well. And I think if they tried to make it just like the video game, that story, it would have been awful, even though I said myself, this would make a great movie.
Yeah, like I was saying, like, they need to gear it towards one side or the other. And if they do it, like, they're gonna please. And yeah, there are gonna be a few people who I'm sure played the games like you and who wanted it to be more like the games. There's always gonna be someone who doesn't like something. That's just how life works. But like I think they would have pleased more people, and they did please more people, I'm sure, by gearing it towards more
mainstream
than they did the actual game.
And that would have been hard to make.
It would have been,
right?
it would have been awful. And so, like, I think that's, I think I got lucky with Prince of Persia because I loved the game. I said this would make a great movie, but it probably wouldn't have the way that I saw it.
Right.
And then they made it, and I enjoyed it for what it was, and so I was happy. But what's interesting is I want to bring up another example of a movie that catered to the gamers, and that was Doom. Did you guys ever see that movie with Dwayne Johnson?
It was awful.
It was really bad, but I could see why if you were a huge Doom fan, if that was your thing, you probably would have enjoyed this movie.
Which, by the way, you can play on Game Pass, and I have been. It's kind of fun.
Anyway,
but that's it.
there's a point in the movie where it takes you first person, and it's like okay, well, so now I'm playing the video game.
Well, I actually just watched an entire movie that takes entirely place in first person.
Cloverfield?
No, it's called Hardcore Henry.
Oh.
Not a great movie.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Oh,
it's a bit gory.
I saw a commercial for that, or a trailer for
Yeah, it's basically like a video game movie in that, like, it's first person, lots of shooting, lots of like parkour. It's just basically a video game in a movie.
Right.
But I heard that part in Doom was real cheesy.
It was definitely cheesy, but what I could tell was that if you were a huge Doom fan and that all of a sudden started happening, because then it was playing the Doom music, like, you would just be like taken back. You'd be like, ah, oh, sweet. You know, this is like you were getting transported back to what you loved about it. Real quick, this is really random, but you were talking about books to movies, and you know, books to movies do better than video games to movies. So usually, but you know, if a video game becomes a movie, people are like, oh, this is from the video game. If a book comes to a book goes to a movie, people say, "Oh, this is from the book," but they also oftentimes just see the movie by itself because a lot of movies come from books. They're
tons.
just tons. And
I'm still salty about Aragon.
gosh, but it's so common that people don't even think about it. They're like, "Oh yes, another," and so just a little tongue in cheek. I think Doki Doki will be getting its own movie, visual novel, video games, just both of them combined into a movie.
I mean, why not? Five Nights at Freddy's is still coming out.
Okay.
Wait,
Yes.
is it what? Wait, what?
Five Nights at Freddy's is coming out with a movie.
That was my next question, actually. Hey! Don't give me that look. Don't give me that look. Because am I going to watch that? Yes, I'm going to watch that. Are you going to watch it?
Oh yeah.
So this is
We
what
should have a watch party, and then we talk about it afterwards and review it.
I know. And
I'm not kidding.
this was
That's if it comes out.
I know it's still kind of in the air.
And I'm a little concerned about it as well, just because, like, there are books for Five Nights at Freddy's 2 that I have not read. The only time I've heard anything about those books is when MatPat is doing his theories.
He's referencing them.
Because he's referencing them because he needs them for his theories that he does about the game. But
But he doesn't like reading them.
I'm sure he doesn't. I don't know, but
He says he said he
no,
didn't like
I
them.
had no interest in reading the books. I just wanted to play the games,
Right.
and so I'm a little worried that they might take some of their source material from the books.
Well, they have to. What are they gonna do from the game?
Oh, you.
Much.
Because of the books and because of stuff online.
Nope, not because of the books. Because of in-game lore.
Are they doing it on the first game only?
Well, here's
Because there's not that much in the first game.
That's
let's be
the
honest.
question. Is first of all, no, I don't think so. I want to get more into the details of the FNAF movie, but my question that will bring this up is what movies are coming out in the future that you are either excited for about a video game, or what would you like to say? The one I was going to bring up was FNAF, obviously. Another one that I want to talk about after we talk about FNAF is I want to talk about Overwatch. But let's go back to FNAF now. There's been basically this movie has been in the works for a while. However, the issue is directors versus production companies, and they originally were going to go.
That Scott keeps on coming out with games.
Yeah. That's the other thing is like, it's kind of like the
But
reverse.
is he making more?
It's
I think he should be done.
So I thought he said he was done.
he should be done.
And then he said he was gonna make an open world one at one point, and then that never happened.
Open world FNAF.
No, I mean there was.
I don't know if it was gonna be
there
FNAF,
was-
he's just
there
gonna
was
make an open world
FNAF
game.
World, but that kind of flopped, and then he took it off of the Steam market.
He took it off.
Yeah, I tried to get it and I couldn't because that was more like an RPG. So yeah, I think that with FNAF, I am excited to see it. And yeah, since Keegan hasn't he's only played the games in passing really. Like yeah, there's so much lore. Like they really don't need to pull from the books.
But
Although,
but
like,
you
some
can't
of the
find
later
out lore
games-
in the games unless you look into it, and then you have to read something outside of it. I guarantee you that much lore does not exist in the actual
like,
game
it
without
does.
looking outside.
Yeah.
Keefin,
There's no way.
Keefin, you gotta trust. You gotta believe us on this one.
And like, but in the books, I mean, even and the theories that I've seen MatPat do about it, some like the books and the games don't exactly cross over all the time.
They're not canon
Like,
together.
they're not canon together. Like they do. MatPat did have to take to make some of his theories make sense. He did have to pull some of the information from the books, but not a lot of it. Most of the lore and most of his theories were based off of the in-game stuff.
Yeah, and that the books were to explain and support theories, not to push a story or a plot.
I mean, it was like when they made the Battleship movie. There's only so much you can do with such a small game.
Well, no, there's
Or
so
Pac-Man.
There's so much.
They made a
Like,
Pac-Man movie?
Aren't they making a Pac-Man movie?
I don't know. There's so much lore that you can dig up in the mini games. Just in the game itself, like yeah, just if you're just playing it in passing, yeah, you're not gonna notice any of that stuff. But if you're actually looking at what you're playing if you're actually trying to put the pieces together. The books weren't necessary per se. They were they were more to help support theories and give people better ideas as to.
And make Scott money.
They did make an Angry Birds movie.
That
which was disappointing how bad it was because it had a really good cast.
But there's only so much you can do with such a simple game. Like, you can look into the lore of whatever you want of the reasons why the pigs are angry and that they're stealing birds' eggs and that the birds are angry at the pigs because they're doing that. And
sure,
you can look into it,
right.
but
okay, a mobile phone versus FNAF doesn't relate, but
it's a mobile game. You can totally play that game mobilely. Let's be honest.
Yeah, you can play Fortnite mobilely too, but
FNAF is on mobile. Like I had
it is on mobile, but it wasn't made to be a mobile game. Angry Birds was, but like for example, bringing up the Angry Birds movie is. There's only so much you can do, so you have to be fresh. You have to come up with something original, which is what Prince of Persia did because there was so little. There was actually very little plot that they had to come up with more, and they made it work. For FNAF,
not the case for FNAF.
It's not the case. There is a lot of information and a lot of characters, a lot of backstory. Like I'm actually worried in the opposite sense. I'm worried that they won't be able to get to everything, and I'm pretty sure they won't be able to.
They'll probably have to make it into like a trilogy or something.
I hope it doesn't. Well, the reason why I say that is just because then I would think it would be more like the Hobbit movies where they just
with the Hobbit it was one book and the
Silmarillion.
They just needed. I think that was kind of greedy on their part. I mean, I did enjoy it. To be honest, I did enjoy all the Hobbit movies.
I watched 1.5 of those movies, and I couldn't do it.
I don't think that they needed all 3 movies, and like the love story, like the little love thing between the elf and the dwarf. Like I thought that was so weird and unnecessary.
It was weird.
Like
you mean Legolas and Gimli?
But how Legolas was brought into the movie, even though he's not in the book.
Yeah, they just wanted to let it bloom.
Yeah.
That was a little weird too. I was glad he was in it. I mean, but if I was strictly concerned about accuracy between book to movie, then I would have been super disappointed about that. But I wasn't. But I think with FNAF, because there is so much stuff. Like I think maybe I think a trilogy would be pushing it. I think maybe they could make one sequel, and then I think if they just focus on maybe 2 movies, they could make it work.
Okay.
But 3, I think is too much. But I think if they were to try and do 2, I mean obviously they're still gonna miss stuff, but I think they would have enough. Time between 2 movies to please most.
I would like to see a movie for Just Cause 3 or any of the Just Causes. Just an explosive, awesome movie that's like over the top, ridiculous and fun and meant to be like that. So kind of like the new Fast and Furious is.
Direct that one.
Yeah, but then I also want there to be something more to it than that. But
sure.
I want Transformers.
Now, Ryan, when I asked you, are you going to watch FNAF? You're like, oh yes. Now that's the key question there is because video game movies aren't good, generally. When I asked you, and you're like, they're all terrible. But yet, you're super excited for this FNAF movie, as am I. And I
already walked that back, because I am remembering a bunch of video game movies.
And that's particularly why I wanted to have this topic, because I knew it wouldn't be that black and white. But,
they're going to make a Minecraft movie.
They already did. Oh no! Sorry, I was thinking about the campaign.
Yeah, they made a story mode for it.
What are they making?
Which I actually kind of want to play. I think I might buy it today.
Apparently, they're making every video game ever into a movie.
Actually, no, I'm not. I don't know. There's so many video games to play.
I know.
I just got a bonus check and I have so much money and I want to. I don't know.
Okay, hey, you're not gonna be paying rent.
Watch the mental breakdown of Ryan live.
Watch as we laugh at Ryan's mental breakdown.
Instability.
Okay, but my question about this is, we understand video game movies don't do well generally, yet we're excited for that.
if there were to be a Netflix original Overwatch series, yes, I would be excited for that.
League of Legends. They have so many characters.
Yeah, I mean,
do a TV show about it.
if they did, yeah, if there was a League of Legends TV show, but I don't want like some cheesy like Mario TV series that they had. I don't want anything like that. It needs to
Have
be
you seen
quality.
the cartoon, the Mario cartoon, and
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh, and he's
But-
so over the top with his pasta references.
Yeah, here's my question is, why is that? If we have a general understanding that video game movies aren't that good, yet we're excited if certain things come out. If there was a Last of Us movie, I would be like,
It's
oh,
announced.
Really?
They're gonna make one.
okay, well, I'm gonna watch that one.
So I would say I think the thing for me is, and maybe like going to like smaller venues could be smart because I feel like a lot of these movies they try to be blockbusters, which means they're riding so hard on making sure that they get that huge audience, and then they do like a muddy story that's iffy, like a Transformers movie. Or something like they don't put in the effort they could, but if it was like a smaller budget, well thought out, and like they really wanted it to succeed and they loved the material, I think that could succeed. Yeah, it's not doing anything.
that's actually one
So
thing.
maybe Netflix could do that, or like not Netflix particularly, but like something like that, like a smaller version. Like Five Nights at Freddy's, if they tried to make that a blockbuster, it would fail.
That's a good point because they're not. They were trying to do that, but then they decided to go back and go to a smaller budget, kind of like how a lot of scary movies are done.
Mm-hmm. Get Out.
I think it was the production company who did Paranormal Activity
Blumhouse?
were going to do Five Nights at Freddy's, which
Is that Blumhouse?
I don't know, but it was good because it would force you to get creative and force you to rely on story and not like effects or whatever. And then it would be seen as a better quality movie. So the question is though, like we have this understanding, why would I be first in line to watch an Overwatch
It's Blumhouse.
TV series?
Oh, it's because like the shorts are so good.
I was gonna say, I mean, Overwatch is a different case because they pretty much already are a.
Yeah, and if
Even though the game has no story, all the characters do. It's the weirdest thing.
Well, it's the same with League of Legends.
Yeah.
There's no story, but they have backstory of the characters, and they release like a video that has like a whole like visually like appealing cartoon thing that happens, and it looks good. Probably not as good as Blizzard has, but because that's Blizzard, that's what
Yeah.
they do. But like it's still very appealing, like pretty looking visuals and like fun little parts. I think the only problem with making either of those kind of games or any games where they have so many characters is that you get into the part where you try to fit in everyone's favorite
Overstuff
character and then it becomes nothing.
Yeah.
So like,
I
you,
think
yeah,
Overwatch
those ones
doesn't-
would be hard to do. I think,
Overwatch doesn't have that danger as much as League of Legends does.
but it
League,
could get there.
It could get there, but it's not currently. Because Overwatch has a lot of characters, but not
Not even close.
Not even close to the amount that League has.
Well, I mean, League's been around for years longer, so that's not really a fair comparison because Overwatch isn't gonna stop anywhere in the near future. That'd be like saying Rainbow Six Siege.
I also
Isn't the
I
same.
don't think Overwatch will want to get too many characters because the gameplay doesn't fit towards that. Also, they're all free. League has monetary gain to like make all these characters because people can buy
kind
them.
of, but you don't. Most people don't have to. Like, I've never needed like. I don't need every character, and I am able, with the little amount I play, even buy the new characters no problem. Like, I never have trouble getting them when I want. Unlike Rainbow Six Siege, where it's fucking impossible, and you have to play regularly. Ubisoft, you whores, make it possible.
Well, either way, I would be excited to see these movies, even though I feel like
See, I feel
they
like
wouldn't be
TV
that
show
good.
might be better.
Well,
Yeah, TV show or movies.
Overwatch, I think would do well, just especially if Netflix teamed up with the Blizzard team. Like
man.
that would.
Like they did with World of Warcraft.
Did they?
Blizzard definitely had something to do with it. Netflix
Not
didn't,
Netflix.
but definitely Blizzard.
But like
Well, yeah.
some of the series that Netflix has come out with, like Seven Deadly Sins, like that was really good. And
Yeah,
like,
what about your favorite anime? What was that one you watched? Death Note?
Oh,
Okay,
Take that
Netflix
back.
has some good
Take
stuff,
it
and
back.
it's got some.
It's got some crap.
It's got some bad.
I think
stuff.
the other thing for us to realize, though, is we're not movie critics. And I think that all of us maybe enjoy movies easier. For instance, I watched that Netflix movie that came out with Will Smith.
I know what you're talking about, but
Like the superhero one?
No. What? Hitch?
Hancock?
Hancock.
No.
Hitch,
a
superhero.
Yeah. It's just with Netflix movie recent, and there's like orcs, the fantasy world.
I know what
Like,
you're
where
talking
orcs
about.
and police,
I haven't
they're
seen
like
it.
policemen and like there's like a police work and like yeah. It's
And Will Smith is actually white in this movie.
definitely not. No, but it's actually like I thought it was a pretty fun movie. Critics hated it, but apparently it did really well on Netflix. Like I don't necessarily like a movie can't be crap. Like I don't usually like crap movies. I say usually because I definitely like some crap movies. And generally, I don't like terrible movies. But I also am a lot easier going, and I can enjoy, a movie's easier where they might not be amazing. I'm no snob that's like, oh, that's below my level of intellect. I hated that. I do love watching movies that are like, what? But sometimes I'm just like, a dumb movie can be fun.
Okay,
So that might also be why I liked like, Prince of Persia and stuff like that, because I do have tend to just kind of like movies.
Okay, final thoughts. I want you to say what is your favorite video game movie and what you would want to be a video game movie. As for me, probably easy one is Prince of Persia, but Final Fantasy Advent Children would be a close second. There was a lot of money pushed into that movie, and so they made it good. As for you, Ryan?
I mean, I was gonna say Advent Children, Final Fantasy Advent Children. That was probably my favorite. Now, if I had to pick like a game that I'm playing now to make into a movie, I would probably have to go with Overwatch. I would watch the crap out of that.
I'm glad you brought that up because I just realized I forgot to say which one I would want, and it would be Overwatch as well. Just that it would Overwatch. No contest there.
And like I think how they could make that, I mean, it would be kind of a risky move, especially if they want to try to appease to a broad audience. But going into the Overwatch movie like they did with Infinity War, like not explaining everyone's backstory or not focus too much on the characters in particular, just on focusing on like the main overarching like villain or whatever plot.
See, I don't think they could do that just
like,
because I feel like Infinity War put in the time to make the movies, but people don't look into the lore in every game. Like maybe you do.
No, like I said, like that would be risky because there would be, like you would be more focusing towards the gamers in that particular sense because the gamers are gonna have most gamers are gonna have put the time into watching, like the little shorts, which I think is a brilliant move by Blizzard because like the shorts. I mean, if they were like half an hour and I saw a short, I'd be like, or I saw like a half an hour movie on or a half hour thing on McCree, I'd be like, I wouldn't be as prone to watch it just because it's half an hour. But like the shorts are like 3 to 5 minutes long. And so I'm like, oh yeah, I can just watch this while I'm eating, or I can just casually watch it. But
on the toilet.
On the toilet, yes.
That's
but so that's what I think. It would be a risky move, but I think if they geared it more towards like not having to explain all the characters, if just the people who would go to watch the movie already knowing enough. So obviously Blizzard would still have some work putting out shorts for a bunch of the different characters that they haven't done before yet, like McCree, like they haven't, or like Lucio. Or like I said, they'd have some work before they actually got a movie out there, if they wanted to go that route.
TV series.
Yeah, that'd be what I would say is like, I want to say League, but I would say I would prefer that to be a TV show. But my only worry about League, or even Overwatch, honestly, would be that they'd try to make it too family friendly and cartoony.
For merchandise reasons.
Yeah, and for kids, and because they know kids play both those games for sure. They're hugely popular with children. We can't deny that.
I don't think that would be I don't think that would be a mistake for Overwatch.
I mean, I guess they're doing the same thing with the Marvel movies.
Except for they're not really that child friendly.
But they downgrade them to what?
They
just
do,
enough. Just enough.
My worry would be that they would make like a PG thing, not a PG-13.
Right.
I would
Yeah,
be fine with PG-13. I don't need like a rated R League of Legends where Warwick bites someone's head off and it's like, holy crap. Like, I don't need that either. I'm fine not having that, but I don't want them to get rid of like the essence of like, because I feel like there's some definite dark crap in both the games. So I would be worried that they'd make like a cartoon of them and make them like PG.
Oh.
And that's why I said like I wouldn't want it to be that family friendly. Be PG-13, that's fine, because I think then they could do like more things with them. They'd have more liberties, but I'd be worried they wouldn't. But I think I'd like to see Titanfall 2 as a movie, because it's a pretty contained story. Yeah, there are characters. There's something you're trying to get to. There's actual like cool elements that would be visually appealing.
I didn't play Titanfall 1, and I still enjoy Titanfall 2.
Well, there was no story in Titanfall 1, so. Like, fun story, great. Not a lot of characters, so they could easily make it kind of like they wouldn't have to put in a ton of huge names, which wouldn't run them up too much. Yeah, there are more than one character, but most of the time you're following one character, and then you have your robot, who's like a secondary character.
Mm-hmm.
They get 2 good voices, and then a couple other characters that come in from here and there, and you're good basically. I think they could make a really good story that would be pretty, would have awesome action scenes, good visuals, and I think that would do well because it is contained. And they don't have to draw from like a million things in this world.
Okay.
And even honestly, I'd even be okay if they just took it from like. The last thing I would say is I would be even okay if they made a video game movie from a video game, but they just took the world. They made their own story, but just using the world. So I get to see a whole different story, and I get to see how that world interacts in a different way. I think that would be cool.
That's what I mean, you've seen that, not with video games, but you've seen that with like the new Harry Potter movies, which aren't Harry Potter movies. It's like the same world, but
yeah, and I
take.
like that idea because I get to see like the same things in different places, and they don't have to stick to something like strictly. And then people can't be as mad because you're ruining what they thought their character was. Because a lot of games, you put your personality onto the character. Like a lot of them don't have voices, so you add to them. You give them thoughts.
Well,
so
the Titanfall 2 guy has a voice.
Well, but like even like I'm just saying like a lot of characters don't,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that's another problem they run into. But yeah, just my finishing thought would be like it creating one in the world. But I think Titanfall 2 would do well.
Okay, what would you say is your favorite video game movie?
Prince of Persia.
Prince of Persia?
Yeah, I don't really watch that many, so I think that's my favorite.
And like
I
it
think
did have
Tomb Raider,
58% on the audience. Like so, even though 50%,
More than half.
Yeah, it's more than half. Like,
60% fresh. It's almost fresh.
Almost. Okay. Well, thank you guys. I think this was a good discussion. I think we understand video game movies a little bit more. For you that are watching, please tell us what are your favorite video game movies and which ones you would like to see be turned into movies. And we'll comment and tell you if we agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Share with your
You're
friends.
wrong.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.